I had been in Oakwood Estates for exactly 12 days when Patricia Thompson first decided I was a problem. The neighborhood itself looked like something from a postcard. Neatly trimmed hedges, American flags fluttering from porches, and the faint smell of fresh-cut grass drifting on the breeze. I'd moved here for peace and quiet, a chance to decompress from years of high-pressure work in the city. But Patricia was Oakwood's self-appointed moral compass, and she wielded that position with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. It started small. A lingering stare when I walked past her house, a fake smile that didn't touch her eyes, a friendly question about where I'd moved from that had just a little too much emphasis on where. I brushed it off at first. I dealt with worse, but the staring didn't stop. Neither did the questions. One afternoon, I was outside tending to my small garden when I saw her again, phone in hand, pretending to take a picture of her azaleas while clearly aiming the lens at me. "Afternoon," I called out casually. She flinched, forced a tight smile, and walked back inside without a word. That's when I decided to start saving everything. Videos, photos, audio recordings. A habit from a long career of dealing with people who underestimated me. The first real escalation happened at Fresh Mart. I was in the produce section, comparing tomatoes, when a teenage boy, lanky, sullen, bumped into my cart and grabbed my grocery bag right out of it. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice calm, "that's mine." He turned, smirking, and held up the bag like it was some kind of trophy. "What's your problem, man?" Before I could reply, Patricia appeared from the next aisle like she'd been waiting for her cue. "Tyler, are you okay?" she gasped, clutching his arm. Then, to me, "Stay away from my son!" She pulled out her phone, dialing before I could get another word in. "I need 20 police cars at Fresh Mart right now! There's a dangerous man threatening my boy!" The manager intervened before it could go further, but I knew then this wasn't going to end on its own. The following Monday, I got a text from Linda, my next-door neighbor. "Heads up, Patricia's calling an emergency HOA meeting about you. Whole neighborhood invited." I chuckled to myself, but my instincts told me to take it seriously. That afternoon, while walking my dog, I crossed paths with Mr. Samuel Everett, the local high school history teacher. Tall, soft-spoken, and perpetually carrying a leather satchel, he was one of the few people in Oakwood who greeted me without hesitation. "Marcus," he said with a polite nod, "I heard Patricia's stirring up the pot." "Seems so," I replied, curious about how much he knew. He gave a small, rueful smile. "Tyler's in my class. Good kid in the classroom, but he's impressionable. Patricia has a way of convincing him the world works a certain way. I just hope you're ready for tomorrow night." "HOA meeting?" He nodded. "I'm not a board member, but I like to keep an eye on these things. People get bold in crowds, and Patricia, well, she likes an audience." Something about his tone told me he'd seen this before, maybe not with me, but with others. I filed that away for later. That night, I reviewed the footage from Fresh Mart and backed it up to multiple secure servers. I also took another look at the HOA handbook. Open meetings meant anyone could attend and present evidence. Good to know. Patricia thought she was waging psychological warfare. She had no idea she was playing checkers against someone who'd been mastering chess for 2 decades. By Tuesday evening, the Oakwood Estates Community Center was buzzing with tension. Folding chairs filled every corner, and the air was thick with polite hostility. I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a seat in the back where I could observe the crowd. Mr. Everett was there too, seated off to the side with a notebook in hand. He caught my eye, gave me a small nod, then focused on the podium. Patricia stood at the front in her best business suit, papers stacked neatly beside her. Tyler sat in the front row, looking simultaneously bored and smug. Several HOA board members flanked her, including the president, Richard, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. At exactly 7, Patricia tapped the microphone. "Thank you all for coming to this urgent meeting," she began, her voice trembling with manufactured concern. "We have a serious threat to our community's safety and values." She clicked to a slide, a zoomed-in photo of me watering my plants. Mr. Everett raised an eyebrow and began jotting notes. I sat back, hands folded, ready to let Patricia dig her own grave. Patricia clicked to the next slide, a blurry screenshot from a neighborhood Facebook group. It showed me walking my dog with a caption that read, "Strange man seen loitering near Oakwood Playground. Be cautious." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. "This man," Patricia continued, pointing at me with the flourish of a prosecutor, "has been behaving suspiciously since the day he arrived. I have witnesses who saw him lurking around children, harassing families, and making threatening gestures." A few people nodded along. Others shifted uncomfortably. In the back, Mr. Everett scribbled something in his notebook, then leaned over to whisper to the woman beside him. She frowned, but didn't say anything. Patricia moved to her evidence pile, several printed emails, none of which I had ever sent. "We need to act before something terrible happens," she concluded. "I propose we petition for immediate removal of this individual from our neighborhood." The HOA president, Richard, cleared his throat. "Patricia, while we appreciate your concern, No," she interrupted, her voice rising. "This is about the safety of our children. My son, Tyler, has already been traumatized." I decided that was enough. I stood slowly, the scrape of my chair loud in the tense silence. "May I speak?" Patricia's eyes narrowed. "No one invited you to." "Robert's rules," Mr. Everett said quietly from his seat, not looking up from his notes. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried in the still room. "If a resident is being directly accused, they're entitled to respond." Several heads turned toward him, surprised. Patricia shot him a look that could curdle milk, but Richard reluctantly nodded. "Go ahead, Mr. Washington," I said. "Marcus Washington." I stepped to the front, my movements slow and deliberate. I appreciate the concern for safety, I really do, but safety must be based on facts, not fear. From my folder, I pulled out still images from my own security footage. Patricia photographing me from her yard, Patricia following me at Freshmart, Tyler taking my groceries. Murmurs grew louder. Patricia's smile faltered. "These," I continued, "are the actual events. And before anyone questions the authenticity, every image is time-stamped and backed up to secure servers. I can produce the originals for the board at any time." Patricia laughed, high-pitched and brittle. "He's making this up. Those could be—" Mr. Everett spoke again, calm and measured. "That's clearly Freshmart's produce section in the background. I shop there. That's the same aisle with the discount tomatoes." A ripple of awkward chuckles moved through the crowd. Patricia's face flushed crimson. Richard raised a hand. "All right, I think we've heard enough for tonight. This matter will be tabled until further review." Patricia opened her mouth to protest, but I'd already stepped aside. Mr. Everett caught my eye and gave the faintest hint of a smile before returning to his notes. Outside, as people began to disperse, he approached me. "She won't stop, you know. She'll just move to a bigger stage." "I'm counting on it," I said. He tilted his head. "You're not scared?" "No," I replied simply. "I'm preparing." For a moment he studied me like a man trying to place a face in a history book. Then he nodded once and walked away, his satchel swinging at his side. Over the next week, Patricia doubled down. Fake social media accounts, anonymous tips to the local blog, whispered accusations to anyone who would listen. Tyler, emboldened by his mother's attention, began posting short videos online, zoomed shots of me walking to my car, captions suggesting I was up to something. It would have been laughable if not for the fact that people were starting to believe her. One evening, I was sitting in my home office when my phone buzzed. It was Linda. "She's talking about calling a press conference," Linda said. "Says she's going to make the city wake up to the danger in Oakwood." I smiled faintly. Good. The bigger the stage, the bigger the audience for the truth. The next day, I saw Mr. Everett again, this time outside the high school, chatting with a group of parents. He waved me over. "Just so you know," he murmured when I reached him, "Tyler's been bragging that something big is coming. He says his mom's going to destroy you." "Appreciate the tip," I said. He shrugged. Patricia thinks she's protecting her son, but all she's doing is teaching him how to hate. You probably already knew that. I did. And I also knew that in just a few days, all of Patricia's lessons were going to backfire, spectacularly. Patricia doubled down. Fake social media accounts, anonymous tips to the local blog, whispered accusations to anyone who would listen. Tyler, emboldened by his mother's attention, began posting short videos online, zoomed shots of me walking to my car, captions suggesting I was up to something. It would have been laughable if not for the fact that people were starting to believe her. One evening, I was sitting in my home office when my phone buzzed. It was Linda. "She's talking about calling a press conference," Linda said. "Says she's going to make the city wake up to the danger in Oakwood." I smiled faintly. Good. The bigger the stage, the bigger the audience for the truth. The next day, I saw Mr. Everett again, this time outside the high school, chatting with a group of parents. He waved me over. "Just so you know," he murmured when I reached him, "Tyler's been bragging that something big is coming. He says his mom's going to destroy you." "Appreciate the tip," I said. He shrugged. "Patricia thinks she's protecting her son, but all she's doing is teaching him how to hate. You probably already knew that." I did. And I also knew that in just a few days, all of Patricia's lessons were going to backfire, spectacularly. Every threat, every lie, every attempt at manipulation was being preserved in multiple backup locations. The personal cost of Patricia's campaign hit me one night when I walked to my car and found hateful words spray-painted across the windshield in thick red letters. "Go back where you came from." A dead rat lay on my doorstep with a note taped to its tail. "You're next." For the first time since this began, I felt genuinely tired. Not scared, I'd been through far worse in my career, but tired of dealing with this kind of hatred in 2024. In my home office, I sat staring at a photo of Sarah, my late wife, smiling from our last vacation together. "You always told me to take the high road," I whispered to her image. "But sometimes, baby, the high road leads straight to a cliff, and someone needs to stop people like Patricia from pushing others off." My phone buzzed. A text from my deputy chief. "Boss, there's pressure from the city council about the situation in your neighborhood. Some members are pushing for your suspension pending investigation." I clenched my jaw. Patricia had connections I hadn't even known about, strings she was pulling behind the scenes. Another text came in. "What do you want us to do?" I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back. "Schedule the press conference for tomorrow, 3 p.m. at City Hall, mandatory attendance for all department heads." The reply was immediate. "Are you sure? Once you do this, there's no going back." I smiled grimly. "I'm sure. It's time." Patricia, meanwhile, was riding high on her perceived success. She'd seen the announcement and assumed it was her victory lap. "Everyone, come to City Hall tomorrow," she posted in her groups. "The police chief is going to address my complaints. We're going to expose this criminal once and for all." She even called friends to coordinate attendance. "Bring signs," she told them. "Make sure the media sees we won't tolerate dangerous elements in our neighborhood." Tyler posted a video of Patricia practicing her speech in the mirror. "Chief, this man is terrorizing our family. He's a threat to public safety." Patricia was so confident, so sure of her win, that she never wondered why the press conference had been called so quickly, or why the official announcement had used my name. That night, I couldn't sleep. I did one final review of everything that had led to this moment. Patricia Thompson had spent years making life hell for anyone she deemed unsuitable for Oakwood Estates. 3 families driven out, countless others harassed. Tomorrow, karma would come wearing a badge. As I was shutting down my computer, my phone lit up with a message from Mr. Everett. "Saw Patricia outside the high school this afternoon. She's handing out flyers to parents about you. Thought you'd want to know. P.S. I'm taking the afternoon off tomorrow. Might be a good day to attend a City Hall meeting." A small smirk tugged at my lips. Even if he never said it directly, Everett knew which side of the truth he stood on. By 2:45 the next afternoon, City Hall was packed. Every local news outlet had cameras set up, reporters tested microphones, and the official topic, community safety and recent incidents, was vague enough to draw everyone's attention while keeping Patricia convinced this was her show. She arrived early with 10 supporters, front row seats, folder of evidence in hand. She'd even dressed for the occasion, like she was ready to receive an award. In the third row, off to the side, sat Mr. Everett. He had his ever-present notebook open, pen poised. To anyone else, he looked like just another citizen taking notes, but I caught the faint lift of his brow as Patricia swept past him. Patricia didn't even register my name on the podium sign, Police Chief Marcus Washington to speak. At exactly 3 o'clock, I entered through the side door in full dress uniform, medals gleaming. Patricia jumped up and pointed at me dramatically. "Officer, that's him! That's the man I've been calling about! Arrest him right now!" Several reporters turned their cameras toward her. Security started moving in, but I raised a hand to stop them. I walked right past Patricia to the podium, my dress shoes echoing on the marble. The confusion on her face was priceless. "You can't be up there!" she shrieked. "Where's the chief? I demand to speak to the chief!" I adjusted the microphone. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm here today to address some concerning incidents in Oakwood Estates." Patricia shouted over me, but I ignored her. The lights dimmed as the screen behind me lit up with the first piece of evidence, Tyler's social media post, with Patricia in the background telling him how to frame me as dangerous. Reporters began typing furiously. The second, audio from Patricia's call to the blogger, her voice saying, "People will believe it when it's someone like him." Gasps, sharp intakes of breath. The third, vandalism footage, Tyler's face clearly visible as he spray-painted the slur on my garage. The fourth, the original 911 call from Freshmart, Patricia demanding 20 police cars over a bag of tomatoes. When the lights came back on, the room was silent, except for camera shutters. In the third row, Mr. Everett's pen was still. He was looking directly at Patricia, his expression unreadable but unmistakably disappointed. The entire room seemed to hold its breath as I reached into my jacket. Slowly, I placed my badge on the podium with a heavy thud that echoed through the chamber. "Miss Thompson," I said, my voice carrying clearly, "2 weeks ago, you asked who I am. You called 911 demanding 20 police cars. You wanted to speak to the chief." I paused, letting the silence stretch. "Well," I leaned slightly toward the microphone, "I'm the chief of every single one of them. I am Police Chief Marcus Washington." The words landed like a thunderclap. The press corps erupted, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. From the third row, I caught the faintest sound, the click of Mr. Everett's pen as he closed it, jotting one last note before tucking his notebook into his jacket. His expression didn't change, but the slow shake of his head said more than words ever could. "I've been serving this city for 6 months," I continued. 2 weeks ago, I moved into Oakwood Estates to better understand the community I serve, to see firsthand how our citizens interact when they don't know they're speaking to law enforcement. Someone in the back shouted, "She called the cops on the police chief!" The phrase caught like wildfire, voices in the crowd chanting it until Patricia's supporters began edging away from her. Patricia wobbled on her feet, her face drained of color. Then, like a scene from a bad soap opera, she fainted, collapsing into a heap of designer suit and crumpled pride. Tyler tried to bolt, but in his panic tripped over a chair, hitting the floor hard. Reporters were already zooming in. As paramedics rushed in, I spoke again. "Patricia Thompson, when you're feeling better, you're under arrest for filing false police reports, aggravated harassment, criminal threatening, and conspiracy to commit defamation." Her eyelids fluttered. "But you can't be." I leaned down so only she could hear. "Ma'am, I literally run the entire police force. Every single officer reports to me." While Patricia was wheeled out, Mr. Everett moved closer to the podium, as though angling for a better view, or perhaps to make sure certain people in the audience heard his voice when he spoke quietly to the man beside him. That's what happens when you build a case on lies. It always collapses, eventually. His words weren't for me, but they found my ears anyway. The mayor, pale and sweating in the VIP section, whispered frantically to his aide, "Draft a statement immediately. Distance the city from her." Tyler was led away in handcuffs, sobbing, "Mom, you said he was nobody. You said we own this town." One of my officers replied dryly, "Kid, your mom just spent 2 weeks harassing our boss. Nobody owns Chief Washington." The chant of "Karen called the cops on the chief" roared again as Patricia's gurney disappeared through the double doors. Within hours, the video of her fainting and Tyler's clumsy escape attempt flooded social media. Memes, TikToks, hashtags, the story exploded far beyond Oakwood Estates. But for me, the most memorable image of the day wasn't Patricia on the floor. It was Mr. Everett standing by the door as people left, telling anyone who'd listen, "You never really know who you're dealing with. Maybe think about that next time before you judge." Within 24 hours of the press conference, Patricia Thompson's life collapsed in the most public way imaginable. The video of her fainting hit 100 million views in 2 days, remixed into everything from classical symphonies to bass-heavy EDM. Her employer, a high-end real estate firm, issued a swift statement. "We do not condone discrimination in any form. Patricia Thompson's employment has been terminated, effective immediately." Even those who'd stood beside her at the HOA meeting suddenly claimed they'd always known something was off about her. The legal blow hit next. Patricia faced 4 criminal charges. Her lawyer managed to keep her out of prison, but the judge, a woman with no patience for nonsense, handed down 2 years of probation, $50,000 in fines, and 500 hours of community service centered on racial sensitivity training. "You wanted the police involved?" the judge said coolly. "Now you'll have their full attention for the next 2 years." Tyler's sentencing in juvenile court was just as blunt. 90 days in detention, 500 hours of community service, expelled from school. He tried to shift the blame entirely onto his mother. "She made me do it. She said if I didn't help her, she'd take away my car, my phone." The judge cut him off. "Young man, you're 16 years old. That's old enough to know spray painting racial slurs is wrong. You made choices." From the back of the courtroom, I noticed Mr. Everett, not as a witness, but as an observer. His arms were crossed, his expression neutral, but when Tyler glanced his way, Everett gave him a small, firm nod. Not of sympathy, but of acknowledgement. 6 months later, Patricia's house went into foreclosure. A black family bought it, Dr. Johnson, his wife, and their 3 children. The irony was perfect. Linda called me just to share, "You should see Patricia's face when she drives by to get her mail from the P.O. box. She looks like she's chewing on lemons." The internet was merciless. Someone even created a video game, Karen versus the Chief, where players tried to avoid calling the cops on increasingly obvious authority figures. Tyler's clumsy fall at City Hall became a TikTok dance trend called the Tyler Tumble. Patricia's last public gasp was a GoFundMe titled "Victim of Police Entrapment, Help Me Fight Back." It raised $3.50, all from Tyler, before being shut down for violating the platform's terms of service. 1 year later, on a warm spring afternoon, I was on a routine community patrol. I stopped at a park to check on a group of community service workers. One teenager in an orange vest straightened up from picking trash and froze when he saw me. It was Tyler Thompson. His face had thinned, his expression different. The smugness was gone. His eyes carried the weight of someone who'd been forced to look in the mirror for too long. "Chief Washington," he whispered. We stood there for half a minute in silence. Then Tyler's eyes welled up. "I'm sorry. I was stupid. I was racist. I was everything wrong with this world. My mom taught me to think that way, but I chose to hurt you. I ruined my life, and I deserve it." Before I could respond, his supervisor walked over. It was Mr. Everett. He'd taken on a part-time role coordinating youth community service programs for the city. His gaze shifted between us, and he said evenly, "Chief, Tyler's been one of my hardest workers. Not perfect, but he shows up, and that counts." Tyler blinked in surprise, glancing between us. I could see the impact of hearing Everett, a man who once had to scold him for bad behavior at school, acknowledge his effort. I told Tyler, "Your future isn't gone. It's damaged. There's a difference. Damaged means you can still repair it if you do the work." I handed him a card for the Second Chance Youth Program. They help young people with records rebuild their lives. College is harder, but not impossible. Same with jobs. Tyler's voice cracked. "Why would you help me?" I thought for a moment, because hate taught you to hate. Maybe kindness can teach you something else. That summer, I saw him at the annual Unity Barbecue. Tyler was serving food to a diverse line of families. Across the park, our eyes met. He gave me a respectful nod. Beside me at the grill, Linda said, "Everett told me Tyler's been consistent at the food bank too. He says the kid's different now." I looked over at the teacher standing near the drinks table, chatting with parents. Everett caught my glance, gave me the smallest nod, and turned back to the crowd. No speeches, no praise, just doing his part. As the sun set, I thought of Sarah's photo back in my office. She'd been right. The high road does lead somewhere. Sometimes it just takes a few good people, like an old school teacher with a steady hand, to help others find it.